So, the Jeffrey Epstein case has just been blown wide open. A massive, and I mean massive, trove of court documents has just been unsealed. And we're going to break down exactly what's inside. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here, U.S. justice officials just dropped over 3.5 million pages from the criminal case. It's, it's just an unbelievable amount of information.
And look, this isn't just a bunch of boring legal jargon. These files are packed with thousands of photos and videos, basically unsealing this hidden world of secrets that's been under lock and key for years.
But with millions of pages to dig through, the real question is, what's actually in them? What new stuff are we learning? Let's get into it.
Of course, at the heart of all this is Jeffrey Epstein himself, the powerful financier who was accused of running this enormous sex trafficking ring with minors. He died in prison back in 2019 before he ever stood trial for those horrible crimes.
Okay, so wading through these thousands and thousands of pages, one name just keeps popping up over and over again. Donald Trump. He's mentioned thousands of times.
Now, before we go any further, we have to make this crystal clear. Just because someone's name is in these documents, it does not automatically mean they were involved in any of Epstein's crimes. That context is absolutely essential for everything else we're about to talk about.
So the documents pretty much go over the history we already kind of knew. Trump and Epstein were friends for a while, though Trump says they had a falling out a long time ago. And he has always denied knowing anything about Epstein's crimes, even though some older reports mentioned messages with, let's say, sexual undertones.
But here's where things get new. These files contain a pretty explosive allegation. There's an FBI document in there that describes a claim from 1994. An anonymous woman alleged that Epstein was, and I'm quoting directly here, furious that Trump had taken the virginity of this young girl. The same document also says Epstein assaulted. Okay, and this is a huge but, the context here is critical. This whole claim came from an anonymous, unverified phone call to the FBI right before the 2016 election. The FBI has not been able to back it up, which is a really key piece of the puzzle here. As you can imagine, the White House has responded, and they've responded forcefully. They're calling everything in these documents unfounded and false. Their statement calls the allegations mendacious and sensationalist, and basically says, look, if any of this was real, it would have been used against the president a long time ago.
And Donald Trump isn't the only member of the family in these files. The documents also show some friendly emails between Melania Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand woman.
But honestly, Trump is just one name in a sea of high-profile figures mentioned here. These documents really start to paint a picture of this sprawling web of connections to powerful people all over the world. And this slide really gives you a snapshot of just how wide that web was. You've got the tech world, right? Emails show Elon Musk asking Epstein about the most unbridled party on his private island, though Musk flatly denies ever going there. Then you have the world of finance. Epstein's own notes accuse Bill Gates of having an affair, which the Gates Foundation calls absurd and totally false. And of course, royalty. We see more details about Prince Andrew inviting Epstein to Buckingham Palace after he was already a convicted sex offender, a relationship that, as you know, has already cost him his royal titles. And Epstein's network didn't stop at the U.S. border. It stretched right across the Atlantic, deep into the heart of French politics. Several big names from France show up in these documents. For instance, there is this one email from the journalist Michael Wolff to Epstein. In it, he's talking about a conversation between Steve Bannon and Louis Alliot from France's National Rally Party. They were apparently discussing how to refinance the party after an election loss. It's an interesting political tidbit for sure, but, and this is super important, it has nothing to do with Epstein's sexual crimes. The files also lay out connections to the former French culture minister Jack Lang. It's alleged his daughter set up multiple meetings between them. Lang himself has come out and said, yeah, he fully assumes his links to Epstein, but claims it was at a time when, in his words, nothing suggested he was dealing with a master criminal. And finally, another big name, the former French economy minister Bruno Le Maire, is mentioned as having met Epstein at his home. But again, just like with the other political mentions, the documents don't connect this meeting to any of Epstein's criminal behavior. So, after all these revelations, all these names, you'd think the picture would be getting clearer, right? Well, not so fast. This massive document dump might have actually created more questions than it's answered. I mean, just take a look at this. 3.5 million pages feels like everything, but it's only 58% of the total archive. There are still
2.5 million pages. That's 42% of the entire file that are still secret.
And then there's the whole controversy over what's been blacked out. The official reason for the redactions was to protect victims. But media outlets are pointing out some huge inconsistencies, where some victims' names and even sensitive photos were not blacked out. And that has led to some pretty sharp criticism of how the Justice Department handled this whole thing. So when you put it all together, the unverified claims, the strong denials, and the simple fact that almost half of the archive is still under wraps, one thing becomes very, very clear. And it all leaves us with this one giant, unavoidable question. Are we finally getting the full truth about Jeffrey Epstein's network? Or, with millions of pages still left to see, is this really just the beginning of the story?